Welcome back to Tocqueville Talks. I'm Brent Nelsen, director of the Tocqueville Center at Furman University, and I'm joined by my co-host, Beth. Beth, you've got a key role to play in a series of podcasts we're going to do here because you accompanied us on our retreat up to Asheville to the Crown Plaza, right?
That's right. And it was my first time accompanying everyone on the Tocqueville retreat. So I was very excited to be there. It was a nice environment. It was kind of relaxing and get to step away, be kind of in the city, but also part of nature a little bit. Had some excellent barbecue.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Rob Larivee, my colleague at Furman and political theorist there, happens to be your spouse.
That's right. So it was my first time recording a podcast with him. Actually, we did 2 podcasts, so they'll be both part of this series of the retreat.
Yes, and so this retreat, this series of podcasts is drawn from the retreat, and we have several episodes with students, and we have some with the individual that we brought to teach the seminars, Paul Wilford. But today we're going to talk about students, and students have a particular view of higher education. They really think it's about knowledge, about mastering materials, passing exams, building credentials, all those things that make your CV more attractive. But we're asking, what if the real questions go a lot deeper? Maybe education is not what you know, but what kind of person you are becoming. So today we're sharing a conversation from our Tocqueville Fellows retreat where students and faculty take up a harder problem, what it means to pursue greatness in a democratic age. And this, of course, was really the theme of the weekend. And we use Friedrich Nietzsche as the person who would at least ask the right questions, even if we didn't love the answers that he gave. So this series of conversations centers around the teaching of Paul Wilford, who is a professor at the Chase Center for Civics, Culture, and Society at Ohio State University. And you may hear his name come up when we talk to the students.
And the students that we talked to for this conversation in particular were Tocqueville Fellows Luke Constantino and Ava Kinghorn, alongside Rob Larivee, as you mentioned, a faculty member here at Furman. So what they were wrestling with is a tension that runs straight through modern life. On the one side, Alexis de Tocqueville sees democracy as a world of equality, comfort, participation, and one that can drift toward conformity, but still leaves room for genuine excellence. He obviously admired the Americans that he was traveling and seeing greatly. On the other hand, Friedrich Nietzsche offers a sharper critique of modernity and particularly democracy. And he saw a world shaped by democracy into what he called herd morality, where pressure to conform erodes the possibility of true greatness. So in this conversation, the students weren't just comparing the theories, they were trying to get inside of that question and see how that was, exhibited in our modern lives. And to understand, is greatness something internal, like a matter of character, or does it have to be made visible, built, written, or created before it's real?
That's right. So the stakes for our students were very high as they thought about their own character. And I have to say, the stakes were high for the professors, too. I really enjoyed thinking about those things and was very much challenged. So I guess it's time to go to the interview. Beth, take it away.
I'm here with Rob, Ava, and Luke. So if you could introduce yourselves briefly.
Yeah, I'm Professor Rob Larivee. Thank you for the introduction. I teach political theory at Furman University, and you are my wife, and I'm really happy to...
This is actually our first podcast together.
First one together, yeah, so I'm happy to be here.
Please.
Hi, I'm Ava Kinghorn. I'm a sophomore at Furman. I'm a mathematics major, and I'm on the pre-physician assistant track.
And my name is Luke Constantino. I am also a sophomore at Furman University, and I am studying politics and philosophy as my majors.
So we're here at the Tocqueville Retreat, and you've been reading Nietzsche, and we've been discussing Nietzsche.
Yes.
So, since you are Tocqueville Fellows, I thought we could start off with a question about the relationship that you're seeing, or if you're seeing any relationship between Tocqueville, who talks a lot about conformity, democracy, how equality tends towards even a kind of soft despotism, and a love of comfort over greatness. Nietzsche has similar themes. But he describes modern morality in terms of like the herd, a herd morality, like a bunch of sheep sort of huddling together for warmth. That's also rooted in equality. He also talks about pity, talks about the leveling of distinctions between people. And he specifically talks about how this like reduces or degenerates the human being. So I was just wondering, have you been seeing any kind of connections between what you've encountered in Tocqueville or studying texts related to Tocqueville or the talks that we've had and what you've been reading in Nietzsche this weekend?
I think there's kind of one key thing that comes to mind with that is what Nietzsche talks about with the herd, as you mentioned, the common herd mentality he references a lot, and then connecting that with slave morality that we'll go on to discuss more, with Tocqueville's description kind of democracy as something that kind of leads to a lessening of both virtue and vice and just kind of a contentment in just sort of mediocrity. And I think with Nietzsche's discussion of of slave morality particularly and and a religion of pity, and pity is this important thing within a herd mentality as something where people are always worried about suffering and about the condition of the group and of everyone, with connecting with Tocqueville's idea of everyone's just kind of content to stay as they are and not really strive for as such achievement as they did, and everyone's just kind of trying to be comfortable. I would kind of see that sort of striving for comfort with the same sort of alleviation of suffering that Nietzsche talks about.
Okay, interesting. What about in the absence of individual greatness or striving for virtue, a kind of willingness to conform to an authority, whether that authority being majority, even, in Tocquevillian terms?
Or, we don't have to be so hard on democracy all the time. Tocqueville has a lot of good things to say about democracy, and we experience, I think, a lot of good things about democracy. So that's also the other side of the coin.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you read Tocqueville, he really seems to love and admire America. And I guess if Nietzsche were looking specifically I guess we could kind of imagine Nietzsche traveling to America and going on tour like Tocqueville. Mm-hmm. Would he have admired it, do you think? Yeah. Would he have found the same things to praise about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you said, Luke, that was great. And I think one thing that I'm noticing this weekend as we've really gotten into Nietzsche is that Tocqueville does. He has his admiration for American democracy. He has this acknowledgement that, yeah, it may produce more mediocrity, but he says greatness is still possible, even if mediocrity becomes more of the sort of average response or average potential of someone living in this. But Nietzsche really thinks that the democracy is pretty inherently bad. And of course, yeah, he's not looking at America. So a different context, but I think he has a much harsher view overall of the dangers of democracy.
Yeah. Do we have why do we think that Nietzsche is so much harsher on democracy? I mean, you're saying that Tocqueville still admires, he sees that there's some greatness, and I mean, just kind of drawing on my own reading or my own memory of democracy in America, he really sees associations for that's the little platoons as being something really admirable. People at a local level will take it upon themselves to do the things that need to be done to be in a community, to exist in a community. So if a bridge needs to be built, they will raise money for that. They will get together a committee, and they'll get together, they'll hire the workers. They will figure it out and get a bridge built. Does Nietzsche think that this is too lowly to be praiseworthy, or what do we think is going on with that?
I think that Nietzsche and Tocqueville have this distinction in what they're looking at, and kind of what they're, I guess, striving for. They both recognize, greatness, and as you mentioned, with Tocqueville admiring, little associations of people working on, in their community in a democratic way, working on things. And I think with your reference, would Nietzsche think that's kind of too lowly? I think he probably would. I think Tocqueville, while he can look at that and say, this is admirable, I like these things, that they're good, it's not quite the same, level of, great, immense achievements or of either individuals or of societies. I think that Nietzsche is really getting at, and that Tocqueville, the things that he's admiring in the American project are not massive greatness. It's kind of a betterment of everyone. Tocqueville has an interest in, I think, the health of the entire society of the whole, and I think Nietzsche can get far more individualistic, which is where then he's striving for potentially very individual greatness, which then he sees a democratic system and this herd mentality and the pressure to conform in that herd mentality as a limiter on the human capability for individual greatness.
Right. So we're not getting cathedrals built, and that, in Nietzsche's view, is something that's actually a loss, I guess. There's a greatness and a value in that if you have a society, even if they're there's a church on every corner, and there's, infrastructure that works. But at the same time, it does get to that point of what are we doing this for, that I think is at the heart of his argument about greatness.
Well, one thing I was wondering about, you mentioned building bridges and roads in America, and how Tocqueville would look at that as part of a successful democratic nation. And I think that Tocqueville would call that progress, but I think Nietzsche would just call that maintenance. And it takes something more grandiose and more unique to actually be a marker of greatness, because building a road is already a very mundane, normal thing, but Nietzsche values unique contributions, large contributions. And so I think that's another place where they really differ in how they view democracy and greatness within that, potentials of greatness within democracy.
Yeah, I like that observation, because everyone needs to go places, right? And so exactly. you can just make the passageway that facilitates that. But that's very different from building. You could even imagine a Nietzschean road, right? And you can immediately sense that would look very different.
A giant viaduct would be that would be a Nietzschean achievement of greatness. Right. Whereas a very well engineered, road that's good, that's packed down, has the good curvature for drainage and everything, that's good and is useful. But yeah, I very much agree. I think maintenance, the word you used, Ava, is very good. That's not necessarily a great achievement necessarily. But the giant, a giant viaduct spanning a big, valley or a canyon.
With your name on it.
Yeah. Right. Nietzsche, each column of the viaduct is a letter. And great, and it opens up new commerce, from the east or whatever. That is great. But the regular road, useful, but not great.
Yes.
Well, I'd just like to add, seems to me that Tocqueville thinks democracy is the regime of the future, and is going to spread all over the globe. And while it has some deficiencies, we need to figure out how to make democracy as best as possible. There's no turning back the clock. Nietzsche thinks that democracy and equality will spread all over the world, but it's necessarily going to lead to the last man. And it'll lead to a human being no different than a pet. And there's nothing redeemable about it, so we must destroy it. Tocqueville sees there's some good in it, and yes, there are these flaws. It's not going to stop. Why don't we find what's best in it? Nietzsche, it's not going to stop. We got to stop it. I think those are differences, and one interesting point that Tocqueville makes is the experience. He discusses the experience of liberty, which is to walk freely, say what you think what you think, move your limbs the way you want freely, is a good and pleasure in itself. And if you don't know what he means, you just won't get it. I think it's similar for Nietzsche. If you don't understand what greatness is and nobility, you just aren't that. They're both very experiential in certain ways, with liberty and nobility.
Interesting. So what do you have, like, a sense of what greatness is after having talked about Nietzsche a little bit and read his works or excerpts from his works?
I would say not like something I could easily nail down. And I've read Nietzsche a bit. I mean, before even this retreat, and before preparing for this retreat, in courses I've taken, and still, greatness can seem very abstract. In as to what greatness is. Is greatness, like as you mentioned, building big cathedrals, where the Colosseum, great marvels of human achievement, whether it's engineering or demonstrations of our power, like a physical thing, or winning a great war. Is this greatness, or is it something else? I think it is these things that can demonstrate to others, not because you need their approval. That's not greatness, because that's vanity, and you don't need their approval, but it's a symbol of your own achievement, whether military achievement, whether engineering marvel, or to demonstrate I was able to create this Colosseum, for example, by bringing together minds and masons and all of this to create this, and demonstrate that was your achievement, as something that's part of your character. And that the greatness, so the greatness is the thing in your character, and that the cathedral or the military victory or the Colosseum is the symbol of that greatness in your character.
Okay. So to turn this to your own education then, to kind of reflect more broadly on American higher education in a democratic age, have you experienced opportunities where you get to create a symbol of something that represents the essence of your character, that would be something that is truly great, and that isn't just recognized, or I can't remember how you put it. You were saying that its its greatness is not dependent on some sort of praise, or a vote where the most people have chosen this project as something great. Like, have you encountered any opportunities to cultivate greatness?
My final exams, I thought, were an opportunity for you to express greatness.
Well, I mean, I wonder if there is something to that. I wonder if it is like places like Tocqueville and other places where these discussions are had, is where a character is revealed, where it's not something where necessarily this material product is left physically in the world for generations to look upon, but rather it is your it is a smaller group of peers who can recognize good ideas and have and be able to identify someone's great character.
I'll take kind of an alternative perspective. Then it's something that is physical, even if it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's not that it's the physical thing is the greatness, or that you, as you mentioned, you don't need this like praise of the physical thing, but the physical thing is like a manifestation of your greatness. There is greatness in you that, as a result of itself, creates and generates something that can be physical, or it can be conversations you have. And so I'll give a physical example: is the student journal Christo et Doctrinae that we have. It's totally student run. It's a publication that we do now twice a year, that I have been, for the past 2 years now, a large part in helping get it together and produce it. And it's something that I'm pretty proud of, that achievement, and putting, putting various avenues in it, whether it's writing or design or editing, to get something together, that you then, you send to a printer, and they print your work. And there's something about seeing that printed. The printed journal itself isn't like the greatness. It's the work that went into it, the character that created that work, that is the greatness. But seeing that made manifest is, I think in a small part, great. I wouldn't call myself this great, individual. We'll see where my future takes me. But like
It
that,
right.
yeah, that in itself is kind of at least a small instance of that, I would say.
Okay, so it's a concrete externalization of love, duty, and devotion that you can hold in your hands. And that's great.
Yes.
That love, duty, and devotion that was in your soul that's been externalized in something concrete in the material world and will be present and that other people can enjoy. Is that?
I would say yes. So the heart of the greatness is the thing internal to you and your soul. However, you're not great if you really have that in your soul, but it's not made manifest. And again, not because you need people to recognize it, but because if it's truly greatness, it will naturally manifest.
I love that.
All right. Well, I think that's a great place to stop.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being with us, Ava, Luke, and Rob.
Thanks for listening to Tocqueville Talks. This episode was produced by Audrey Enghauser. Lucy Southwell provided administrative support. The theme music is called The Girl I Left Behind Me, a popular folk song in early 19th century America, here performed by Jacob Taylor Armerding. To learn more about our lecture series and events, our Tocqueville and Beaumont Fellows programs for undergraduates, and to listen to episodes, watch event recordings, or support our work, search on Google for the Tocqueville Center at Furman University. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, subscribe, comment, and share Tocqueville Talks on all your favorite listening services. And visit our YouTube channel for full recordings of past events and episodes. Until next time, goodbye.